One more time, I'm glad to bring you greetings from the Prairie Association of the Illinois Conference of the United Church of Christ, and to share greetings from the 40 churches in our association. And we look forward to a chance, I look forward to a chance to visit with you at coffee hour and to thank you once again for inviting me to be with you. I've got to come up with some better and new OCWM jokes because I've used my only one with you twice now about OCWM it really stands for Our Church Wants Money. It's our church's wider mission, but I need to thank you every single time for your extremely generous support of our church's wider mission. It was in early January, I think, I came home and I had a package in the mailbox addressed to me from Rebecca White Newgren, and inside was a book and a Post-it note that said, "This is what we're going to do for Lent, so pick a question that Jesus asks and prepare to preach on it." So it's a wonderful, wonderful collection of short essays and devotions and homilies on the questions Jesus asked. And I was really glad to pick Jesus asking Simon Peter, "Do you love me?" Because I think that that's the question Jesus asks us time and again. It's an important question because it's about love. And I think that with love comes responsibility. So the question for me is, what responsibility do we bear? What do we bear when we tell someone, Jesus or anyone else, that we love them? That is, can we profess our love for another and then just leave it at that? I've known Jean, our liturgist today, for a long time. Yes, I love Jean. Have I carried out the responsibility of loving her as best I could? No, I haven't. When we declare that we love someone, I believe there is a responsibility, a duty, an obligation that is attached to that. And Jesus says so too, because Jesus says that if you love me, that yes, there's a responsibility, yes, there's an obligation, and yes, you have a duty now, and that responsibility that Jesus assigns, if we say we love him, isn't small. It's not inconsequential. It's huge. Feed my sheep. If you really love me, feed my flock, tend my lambs. So I want to put that commandment of Jesus in some context here, because we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves in Lent. This is the risen Jesus. This is after the resurrection, after the crucifixion. It's very near the end of John's gospel, and the risen Jesus has appeared to his disciples twice. The night before this third appearance, several disciples are gathered on the beach together, and Simon Peter, the very same Simon Peter who has denied Jesus 3 times, maybe he's bored, maybe he's hungry, who knows, but he says, "I'm going fishing." And the others decide to join him. And maybe, according to the Gospel of John, there are 6 or 7 of the disciples in this boat. They all pile in and they go out into the night to fish. And John tells us that they caught nothing. And at daybreak, as they're coming back to the shore, they see a man on the beach, but they don't recognize him. And the man asks them rather rhetorically, "Children, you have no fish, have you?" Throw the net over the right side of the boat, which they do, and then there are so many fish, so heavy that the disciples are unable to haul that net in. And it seems like that's when they recognize Jesus. That's when one of them shouts, "It's the Lord." And Simon is so excited that after fishing naked all night, he puts his clothes on so that he can jump in the lake. I guess he wants to be to Jesus first. And when the others arrive, they see a charcoal fire and fish cooking, and Jesus says, "Come, let's have breakfast." And they eat together fish and bread by the sea. And when breakfast is done, when they'd eaten their fill, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Do you love me more than these?" Well, I find this question puzzling. Do you love me more than these? I want John, the gospel writer, to be more specific. I sound like a lawyer in training when I say this, but I want to know if Jesus is asking Peter, does Peter love Jesus more than Peter loves the other disciples? Is the question, does Peter love Jesus more than the other disciples love Jesus? Or is Jesus kind of sweeping his arms about, pulling in everything that's in their sight and say, do you love me more than all this, more than the beach and the sea and the disciples, the whole creation? I'm going to go with a combination of the second and the third, that Peter is being asked if he loves Jesus more than the disciples do and more than all that he can see. Because Peter really is the de facto leader of the group. Peter's the one who declared he would never deny Jesus, and yet Peter's the one on whom Jesus says the church will be built. Peter is the passionate follower of Jesus, even though he denied him 3 times. Peter seems to be a natural leader, a man of faith who nevertheless doesn't always understand that he's in the presence of God's own Son. Do you love me? Do you love me more than these? So not surprisingly, Peter says yes. I mean, good Lord, he's just thrown on his clothes and jumped out of a boat and swum to shore to be the first one to arrive at Jesus' feet. He's had a great breakfast. There's a sense of wholeness. The man whose death they have been grieving for days now is here with them on the beach, live. Of course, Peter says he loves Jesus. Do you love Jesus more than these? More than the disciples love Jesus? More than Peter loves the disciples? More than Peter loves the beach or the fish or breakfast or the whole creation? Does he love Jesus more than he loves his own comfort, his own safety, his own life? So this is the passionate Peter, the one who's impetuous, the one whose faith runs deep but sometimes is no more than skin deep when it's a question of his own life and reputation. And Peter says, you know I do. You know that I love you. And it comes a second time, and Peter responds, you know I do. You know I love you. And a third time, and the third time that Jesus asked Peter this, we can hear that irritation, or at least that strain in Peter's voice. Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Perhaps Peter is speaking irritably, but wondering if this is a test. Perhaps Peter, like the rest of us, can't get his head around the fact that the man who died on the cross, bloodied, bleeding, and betrayed, is now sitting with him on the seaside. We just know that when Peter answers Jesus a third time, he tells Jesus that he loves him a third time, and perhaps he's erasing those 3 times that he denied Jesus 3 times. You know, Jesus isn't asking this just so that Jesus can be satisfied that the person that he selected for the church to be built on does love him. Jesus doesn't satisfy his own ego or heart needs. The risen Jesus is asking Peter this, I believe, in order to ascertain Peter's commitment to who Jesus is, to what Jesus taught, to the love Jesus shared, and to the God who sent Jesus. Do you love me Jesus asked passionately and not lightly, not just to make conversation. Because I believe Jesus says or thinks, because when you tell me you love me, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. I'm going to tell you that you need to tend my lambs, to feed my sheep, and that you must do what I'm telling you to do if you claim that you love me. 3 times the command is made to Peter. Did Peter say, sure, I love you, without really thinking of the responsibility that comes with that? Did Peter say, sure, I can do that. I can tend your lambs? Does Peter say, of course I love you, because he's trying to erase the guilt he carries from denying Jesus 3 times in the garden? Is Peter looking to make up for all the times he slighted Jesus or misunderstood him or tried to tell Jesus how to do Jesus' job? Remember, get behind me, Satan. So what's the responsibility that we accept or take on or bear when we tell somebody, especially Jesus, that we love them? This isn't a romantic Valentine's Day kind of Hallmark love. This is a fierce love that Jesus is calling us to embrace. It's the kind of love that gets up in the middle of the night when the child is sick and that sits with the child through the night, even when you've got a major presentation in the morning. It's the fierce love that washes those sheets that the child has vomited on at 4 a.m, even while wondering how the bills are going to be paid. It's the fierce love that sits with the classmate who has come out to her parents and whose parents have thrown her out of the house at age 16. It's that fierce love that holds the confession of the sister who tells you that they are engaged in an affair at work. It's that fierce love that doesn't overcome or overlook sin, but it's that fierce love that holds on to that person no matter what. There's not much heroic. There's nothing heroic about bringing another blanket to the spouse who's alternating chills and shivering and fever, but it is life-giving. And it's that same life-giving, fierce love that fills the bowls on a Friday night to the woman who comes yet again with her 3 children in tow and no job prospects. It's life-giving love that brings another blanket to the HIV patient in hospice care whose family has not visited him. This is the love that makes us drive the adult child to rehab one more time. This is the love that makes us sit down when we're so angry with our minister that we can't see straight and asks to be understood, to be heard, and to understand. This is love that will not let us go, love that will not abandon us, that will not see us, that love that will not offer a reward or payoff for expressing it. And this is what feeding Jesus' sheep means, what tending the lambs means. It's not complacent. It's not reciprocal. The adult child may need to go to rehab yet another time. The HIV patient in hospice may not have the strength or the wherewithal to say thank you. The child who vomits in the middle of the night just knows that you're there, and the security comes from that. This is the kind of love that I believe our God in heaven has for us. It's not oversized balloons on Valentine's Day or stuffed teddy bears that you win at the carnival that you give to your 18-year-old girlfriend, provided you're 18 years old yourself. This is the love, bad sentence there. This is the love that bears all things, hopes all things, endures all things, and that's the love that Jesus has for us. It's the love that we are commanded to live out when we say we love Jesus. with loved one and stranger, with elderly parent who has soiled her undergarments, with sickly child who doesn't know better, with beggar on the street and the grieving widow who has come back to church after her husband has died. This is what Jesus means when he commands us, we who confess our love for Jesus, to tend his sheep. May we tend them with ferocity. Amen.